Hi there guys, I hope you're all okay. Happy Friday. I hope you've enjoyed the videos so far this week about coping skills. If you haven't already watched them, I would suggest you go back and have a look, not to toot my own horn. As you will see from the title of today's video, we are going to be playing a game of coping skills bingo. But before we get into the game, let's first talk about the different types of coping skills. But first, let's talk a bit about what we actually mean by coping skills. So coping skills, or otherwise known as coping mechanisms, are the ways that we have adapted to look after ourselves. So the things that we can do, skills that we pick up along the way or we've learned from other people that can help us to feel better and feel more like ourselves when we're feeling anxious or stressed or sad or angry. That's when our coping skills come in to help us feel a bit better and return to our baseline. So coping skills, today I'm going to be talking about 5 different types of coping skills. So we've got distraction, emotional release, grounding, opposite action and self-soothing. So to learn a bit more about each category, stay tuned. So the first one I'm going to talk about is opposite actions. This is when, as the name suggests, we're doing the opposite action of how we're feeling. So if we're feeling sad or anxious or angry, then we're going to do something that's going to make us feel the opposite. And I'd say the opposite of most of those feelings would be sort of, happy, calm, content. So we're going to be doing things that we know work that make us feel happy or calm. So that might be things like reading out loud some positive affirmations. It could be, watching a film or a TV show that makes you laugh, listening to upbeat music and having a dance around the kitchen. It is whatever works for you. So it might be handy to have a list to hand of things that you know makes you feel better, makes you feel happy. Next one is self-soothing, or I suppose we could call this self-care. And this is when we're using all of our different senses to comfort ourselves and to soothe ourselves from whatever we're feeling. So this can be things like, maybe for touch, we would maybe have a nice soft blanket or a soft dressing gown. Might use a stress ball as something to squeeze. Maybe smell could be having a bubble bath, or lighting some candles, using your favourite sort of hand lotions. Anything that is, using your different senses and helps you feel calm and content again. Then we have grounding, so this is sort of encompassing mindfulness into our self-care and our coping skills. So grounding is when we're using techniques to bring ourselves back into the present moment rather than focusing on the past or worrying about what might happen in the future. So this could be things like focusing on our breathing, doing some meditation, being out in nature on a mindful walk. For more about mindfulness, we've got loads of videos on our Facebook page about different techniques that you can use. Next up, we have the distraction category. I'm sure this is something that we all do. This is an especially popular coping skill. So doing something that will take your mind off what you're thinking or worrying about or how you're feeling. So this could be things like scrolling through your phone, binge watching things on Netflix, reading a book, cleaning the house, things that you're doing to actively stop thinking about whatever's on your mind. Which is great in the short term because it does get your mind off it, and these things that you do are easily accessible and probably things that you do on a daily basis anyway. But in the long term, this can be quite a negative way of dealing with things because we're just sort of ignoring them and waiting for them to resurface again. But in the short term, it can be a good thing. And finally, we have emotional release. So this is where we're doing whatever we can to express those emotions, particularly difficult emotions. So getting them out of our body, out of our heads, and to feel that release, release that stress. So this could be things like, if we're feeling really stressed and angry, just shouting or punching a pillow, something like that. It might be having a vent to a friend, going to therapy, you know, journaling, writing things down, anything that is getting all those feelings out of you so they're not being bottled up. So now we've spoken about the different categories of coping skills and what coping skills actually are, let's now get into the, well, I want to say the fun part of this video. I hope you guys agree. But we're getting into our game of coping skills bingo. Ta-da! So here's one I made earlier, again on the computer, because we all know what my drawing skills are like. So this is a game that you can play yourselves or with your family and friends, at school maybe. But what we're going to do is fill our card with our coping skills, fitting into the different categories that I mentioned. You don't have to do that, but you can if you want to. So filling in the card, and then sort of over the week you can sort of tick things off as you've done them. So a fun way of sort of remembering how we can cope, what coping skills we have, and like I say, turning it into a bit of a game to see how quickly you can fill or complete your card. How long will it take you to get a line or a full house? I hope I'm using those terms correctly. So like I said, I've split it into the 5 categories. So we've got distraction, emotional release, grounding, opposite action and self-soothing, and then we've just got boxes under each one. You could just draw this by hand if you wanted to, or you could copy and do it on the computer. So let's get writing in some of these so that we can get some ideas. So, distraction. For me, a classic example of a distraction technique is scrolling through social media on my phone. And I mean, you don't need me to tell you that social media has its downsides. But that could be a great way to get your mind off how you're feeling and concentrate on something else instead. Emotional release, so I'm going to put down writing in a journal. So writing in a journal, keeping a journal, can be a great way of getting your thoughts out of your head and onto some paper. There's something really therapeutic about that, especially if you're sort of writing it late at night before you go to bed, rather than sort of having all these thoughts whirling around your head, overthinking. We're getting them all on paper, and hopefully we can sort of let them go and try not to think about them anymore. Grounding, what can we put for that? So for grounding, I'm going to say a mindful walk. Again, there's a video about this on Facebook, just keep scrolling to find it. But a mindful walk is basically having a walk in nature and taking the time to notice what's going on around you, you know, listening to the sounds, the smells, what can you see, what can you hear, what can you feel. So yeah, that's a good one for grounding. Opposite action. So this is when we're doing something opposite to how we're feeling. So I'm going to put down watching a funny film. So watching something that I know is going to make me laugh, and it's going to cheer me up, rather than sort of watching something sad that I know is going to make me feel more sad, doing the opposite of that. Although I guess watching a sad film could fit into emotional release if you know it's going to help get those feelings out and make you cry, because crying is a healthy thing to do. I think a lot of people are ashamed to cry or think that crying is a weakness. I mean, I would strongly disagree with that. I think crying is a really positive and sort of powerful thing, because when we cry, all those stress hormones are coming out in our tears, so it's good to have a good cry. So what else can we put opposite action? I'm going to say listening to music. More specifically to upbeat music. And having a dance around the kitchen, who doesn't love that? And then self-soothing, so this is when we're thinking about our senses, so I'm going to say, so having a warm bath. and maybe something like doing a face mask, so the feeling of that on your skin. So yeah, so you get the idea. So you're going to go through, fill in all the boxes, and then over the next week or so, see how many of these you can tick off. But I think this is a great way to see, you know, how well are you looking after yourself. If you've not ticked many, then it might mean that you need to sort of up that self-care and do a little bit more. And yeah, see how long it takes you to sort of complete all of these. You might want to include things, some coping skills that you've not tried yet, just to sort of make you try something new to see if it works for you. But yeah, like I say, this could easily turn into a good game sort of amongst friends or family to see who fills their in first. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed that one. Thank you, as always, so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care. So now we